Hi, Tim Blankenship here with Divorce661.com with Divorce661.tv, where you can tune in to our live broadcast on Thursdays at 1 p.m. If you're listening to this, today we're going to be talking to Connor McIver, a local Santa Clarita real estate expert. We're going to be talking about the issues of divorce and real estate. So if you're going through divorce, you're going to want to tune in, or if you're thinking about going through divorce, you're going to want to listen up, because we're going to be talking about divorce and real estate and some of the issues that we see with folks going through divorce who either need to sell their house, refinance their house. We're going to talk about if what to do. Should you short sell? Should you refinance? And how should you refinance? What if you don't qualify? We're going to be talking about all those types of issues and more, how to protect yourself, what's the best and cleanest way to deal with your property when going through a divorce in California. That's on today's agenda, so make sure to tune in. We'll be starting with you very shortly. Thanks for tuning in. Hi, Tim Blankenship here with Divorce661.com with Divorce661.tv, where you can tune in to our live broadcast on Thursdays at 1 p.m. If you're listening to this, today we're going to be talking to Connor McIver, a local Santa Clarita real estate expert. We're going to be talking about the issues of divorce and real estate. So if you're going through divorce, you're going to want to tune in, or if you're thinking about going through divorce, you're going to want to listen up, because we're going to be talking about divorce and real estate and some of the issues that we see with folks going through divorce who either need to sell their house, refinance their house. We're going to talk about if what to do. Should you short sell? Should you refinance? And how should you refinance? What if you don't qualify? We're going to be talking about all those types of issues and more, how to protect yourself, what's the best and cleanest way to deal with your property when going through a divorce in California. That's on today's agenda, so make sure to tune in. We'll be starting with you very shortly. Thanks for tuning in. Hi, Tim Blankenship here. All right, this is Tim Blankenship, and we are here live with Connor McIver. Let me put my mic on. This is our fifth live broadcast.
Oh, very good.
And we almost got things wired pretty well. So today we're talking real estate and divorce. And I wrote down some questions even for you. And I have some very cool slides that I want to share with everyone. So let's take a look. How about that?
That's awesome. I appreciate you having me on your show as well. This is such an important topic, especially with what you do for a living and what we do with a living. This comes up, and it's a painful process a lot of the time. Very few times is it easy.
Yeah, and it's if you have property and you have real estate and you're getting divorced, it has to be dealt with in the divorce one way or another. So I wanted to get these types of videos out there so people know what options they have. Because usually when they call us, they have no idea. The first time that they realize they have to do something is after they call our office and start services with us.
Plus, a lot of times, something that's interesting to note as well, it's like buying that new car. You go out, you go to the dealership, you find the car you like, you test drive it, you take it out. Prior to that, you've probably never seen that car much at all. After you buy it, it's everywhere. Right. Everybody has one of those cars. Well, same thing when you're starting to go through the process of divorce, everybody now becomes an expert. They may have never been divorced. Now all of a sudden you're getting all of this information. You got to do this, you got to do that, this is who you need to talk to, this is what you need to do. And in essence, a lot of people get misled that way.
That's probably one of the biggest challenges we face is in all aspects of the divorce, is people talking to friends who've been through the divorce process or haven't, like you said, and giving them pointers or kind of putting things in their head, kind of stirring the pot sometimes. So you've probably you do a lot of real estate. You've been doing this a long time.
Yeah, we got in 1998, so that's when we started. I started at a couple different smaller brokerages, one down in San Fernando Valley. I was a full-time cop at the time. Paris, my partner in real estate, came about the following year, so 1999, and she saddled with Coldwell Banker for a little while, and then Remax is where we both have been since
forever.
1999 or 2000. So as far as, do we sell a lot? We're top 5, top 10. It's just going to depend on month, time of year, number of closings.
Sure.
As far as divorce goes, this is something that, coming from the background in law enforcement, there's a lot of divorce there, a lot of divorce amongst attorneys, a lot of divorce amongst contractors and stuff. So, yeah, we've dealt with our fair share.
Have you run into any common themes or aspects that people should be aware of? Do you see repeatedly, like, okay, this keeps happening?
Yes.
That people, like, you could kind of give them a heads up on?
Yeah, one party usually is the saint, but it's usually not the person saying they're the saint. So the other party is usually the horrible one, the more difficult one to deal with, I should say. So that seems to be a very common theme. People have their own perceptions of how they are. And with real estate, another common theme is blame. So while you might have one party that just wants to get out and get away, you're having the other party that wants to do everything they can to either thwart the deal or mess it up or cause an issue with it. And even though at the beginning they said that's how they wanted it to be, things change.
Yeah.
You know, you have time to think, you sit there. And I'm all for that. If somebody comes to us after we've gone through whatever it is to list the property, get it marketed, and speak with all parties, get mutual agreement, even if somebody says, you know what, we don't want this to go through, it does take two people. It takes both, unless court says you have to or some other legal mechanism.
Right. So we have people that come in, you're not usually disagreeing. They know they have to get rid of the property one way or another. It's either sell it, refinance it, or even someone staying in the home and keeping the current mortgage if they can't refinance. They're not usually, not at least our clients, because we're not, you know, we're doing more amicable style cases here as opposed to litigated cases. So they're trying to work on it, but sometimes they have questions like, what are my options? So I brought up some other slides here that I wanted to kind of just go over, see if this is going to cooperate. I gotta go down, up, okay.
One of the things that we find, and I know we'll probably get to this further in the conversation, but when somebody's looking for a real estate agent to handle their divorce, there has to be a clearly laid out plan, and it has to involve rules that cannot be broken or sacrificed by any of the party, including the real estate agent. So these are actually written out rules. How are all the parties going to communicate? How are they going to express themselves throughout the transaction? How are they going to come to an agreement? Because it could be, for example, you put a property on the market at a pre-agreed to price from both parties, let's say $500,000, and then one of the parties changes their mind and says, well, we want more. So now we're kind of stuck. So all of these things, a professional agent's that knows divorce is going to have them written out, and there's going to be rules, and all parties have to sign it.
So you have a specific agreement kind of between them.
Absolutely.
Aside from, this is not a real estate form, this is something that you have them kind of contractually say, hey, this is what we agree to do.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's smart.
And even with the form, I mean, ultimately, is it going to hold up in court? Who knows? But at least it's going to keep us out of harm's way, because on that form itself, there are other methods that hold me accountable and my staff accountable to.
Right.
For example, in the attorney world, and you were a cop for a long time and so on, so was I, that ex parte communication, the parties going and speaking with one another outside of everybody else's earshot when they shouldn't be, not speaking to those other parties. We established that on this form that we have our clients sign. That's not to take place. If we're all in agreement, I can't accept a phone call from one of the sellers, because it takes two to get divorced, right? I can't accept a phone call without having the other party involved, even if it's to ask me something that seems very innocent.
Because all it takes is one thing for them to say, oh, you were talking to my spouse, and that's it,
Done.
right?
Yeah. Oh, and I thought we had this agreement, and without the agreement, all that stuff is null and void. So that's why we have it all established on paper, so when we get to that point in the process, and it's happened, somebody call, hey Connor, it's Mr. Smith, I know you're taking care of our real estate with regard to our house and our divorce and such, but I just had a quick question. Well, Mrs. Smith now finds out that Mr. Smith talked to me, and I actually gave him an answer, even something innocent that doesn't have to do with anything. Now that's a violation of trust.
Right.
So it has to be put down on paper, and everybody has to adhere to it.
I've even heard of each spouse having a separate realtor. Have you heard of that?
I have.
That sounds like a nightmare.
It comes up, and again, now you have, and it makes a lot of sense in some cases, depending on the relationships and how easy the break apart is going to be. But yeah, we encounter that where the missus is going to have their own agent representing them, and then the mister is going to have their own agent representing them. And that, now you have more chefs in the kitchen, it really creates a lot of drama. Which brings me to something important. You need to find out the source. If you're being referred to an agent, if you're in the middle of a divorce, you're being referred to an agent, and that agent's telling you, they're saying, okay, this is the person that we need to use, I would ask straight up the person that I'm divorcing from. I would say, well, what's your relationship with this person? Because everybody's always concerned with somebody making more money. Everybody, if there's $150,000 profit after everything's finished in the divorce, each spouse is always thinking in the back of their mind, I hope my mister isn't taking me for a ride. I hope my missus, because typically it all comes down to money, I'm sure.
Usually with anything,
right.
Kids mean money. The spouse support, child support, it all usually has something to do with money. Yeah. Have you ever had? I had a client of ours who was selling their house, going through divorce. The concern was how is the check going to be dispersed? Is it going to go into our joint account? What if my spouse gets to it first and takes it all out? Is there a way of dispersing the money from the sale to separate accounts, or can it be? How can that be?
That's part of the mutual agreement
Okay.
with escrow. Typically, how it's normally done is both, and it's going to depend on if there's a court decree in place. A court decree can label an escrow account where the money goes in separate, and then it's divvied up by the court, whatever the prearranged agreement. But let's say it's one of these easier divorces, if you can even say that. Then at escrow, they can draw up an instruction where if it's a 50% split or 30-70 or 60-40 or whatever it may be, then that particular, once it closes, after it funds, it's going to record. Then as soon as those funds would typically get dispersed by check, they would be wired or separate checks mailed.
So there's a way to deal with that.
Absolutely.
That's good. So one of the things I want to talk about today was, the options people have how to deal with their property when they're going through a divorce. What are their options, and what are the pluses and minuses of each? But the first thing I want to talk about is consulting with a real estate agent. That should probably be something that is done early on in the process, right? Kind of get this information about a written agreement. And that stuff I didn't even know. That's great. Coming to an agreement and coming to terms on an appraisal, or even deciding on an agent to use.
It's funny, a bankruptcy attorney said something really valuable when I was speaking with him. We just came out of this big foreclosure short sale market. And I asked him, I said, so when should somebody call you, like in your paralegal services with divorce, the same answer is going to apply. Same with the real estate agent. When should they call you? He said at the very first sleepless night. Whenever whatever it is, divorce, bankruptcy, issue with the house or the kids, that's when they should first contact me. So at the very beginning, whenever you're speaking about divorce, that first sleepless night, they should be making a few phone calls, talking to the paralegal to get the divorce started, if in fact that's what they decide. And at least sitting down with an agent and getting a game plan together so they can explain to you how the process is going to play out. We're not there at that initial meeting to sign. And a lot of times couples don't want to be together. That's another thing that should be asked by that real estate agent, because some of them, they get together and it's like, throwing chlorine and oil. I mean, the thing just goes nuts and blows up and everything else. But at that first sleepless night is when they should, at least one of the parties.
So early on in the process is the best way to go.
And it's not going to be, and the other thing too, Tim, is it's not going to be a fast process, because at that particular point, they haven't even decided. And I would say probably 70 or 80% at that point aren't even going to go through with it, at least within the next year. There's going to be periods of working it out and going through the circle, honeymoon stage, and now we're back in the same crap that we were before, and he promised he'd change, or she promised, so on.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you came out, because part of what we do is making sure that the people that come to us have the information and resources available. We bring up things that they probably don't even know are something they need to think about. So they know they want to file for divorce, they know they need to do that, but they haven't thought about all the other things that are involved with it. So selling a home, or potential for needing mediation, or all the bankruptcy, and all these things kind of can intertwine with. It just depends on what's going on. So I'm glad to have you as a resource for folks who they can call and say, hey, call Connor. Let's talk about your options. You need to find out, get appraisal information, and there's a lot of stuff that has to go into this, and getting the agreements and all that. So that said, I want to talk about the 3 options. I came up with 3. I put 3 options, but then I added a 4th. So 4 options. They can either sell, right? They can refinance.
Okay.
They can keep their existing mortgage, right? And one can kind of stay there and pay the existing mortgage, and there's reasons why they may want to do that. Or they can sell at a later date. So maybe we could talk about each of these options. I kind of did a slide for each one. So selling your home during divorce.
Important with that process is everybody, again, with each one of these potential outcomes that you've described here. First part, of course, we need mutual agreement by all parties. If the parties can't get together, then we can talk to the parties separately or maybe over the telephone together. But everybody needs to hear what's going to happen, how the process is going to work. So as far as selling, it only takes one signature from one party to start the process. However, to finish it, both parties have to be in agreement. Both parties have to sign everything.
That's assuming they're both on the loan and on title.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
Now, what if only one's on title?
It's going to still come down to the loan.
Oh, so the loan depends on, so both can be on title. If only one's on the loan, that you can sell it with one signature?
No, still need both.
Still need both. Either way, it pencils out.
And then we're going to look on title. That's going to be the first thing. And I'll have to correct myself. I apologize. However, title renders, that's who's going to go on contract. Those are the signatures we need.
Okay, so it's title, not the loan.
That's correct.
Okay.
Now, the other thing, and this is interesting, whenever you're in escrow or you start that process, what I show on title could be different than what's actually there. And the only way to verify that is pulling something called preliminary title, which is what escrow does.
Okay.
They typically don't do that until you're a little bit deep into the process because it costs money.
Right.
And they want to kind of make sure. But if things change, then addendums have to be drawn up establishing the other people that have to be part of the contract, and then they have to be spoken to as well.
Okay. Sometimes selling the home, making that decision is their only option. That you can't refinance. Maybe they don't qualify, and we'll talk about those in the other slides. Hopefully there's equity. We have cases where there is equity. We have cases where there's no equity, and they just have to short sale, and then they fall into that other option of maybe just having them stay in the home. It's just sometimes it's not up to their mutual agreement. It's based upon their circumstances financially or otherwise. So that's option number one, selling the house. Option number two, we have refinancing your home during the divorce. What we find, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
Just from our perspective, is two things. One spouse usually wants to stay in the home, usually because they have their kids and they want to continue raising their kids.
School.
In the house and school, and try and keep a little bit of normalcy. But the issue they run into is, does that single now parent have the financial ability to refinance in their name? Now, if they're one of the spouses that wasn't working, obviously that's not the case. If it's the working spouse, perhaps they can qualify for refinance. Of course, taking into other factors that financing is available and there's equity in the home and so forth. It's not a negative equity scenario. So that's some of the things we come across where, Tim, I want to keep the home, but I can't afford to refinance on my own. I stay in the home and the husband can make the mortgage payment, or the spouse can make the mortgage payment. It can get kind of convoluted. So do you see those types of things in how in some of the transactions you've had?
It does happen quite a bit, and in a lot of the people that are purchasing houses, they're a two-income deal. So to have one of them try to pull out and be able to take this house and have it refinanced so the spouse's name is nowhere in association with it, a lot of times it's an impossibility. It can't happen. And just like you stated, which is really important, you need that equity there. You have to qualify for the whole deal, the whole pie. So that's refinancing. Some do want to stay. A lot of times, though, I would say 85, 90%, it just can't happen.
So that high, it's going to end up in a sale.
Absolutely.
Most times.
The other, I know, might be, I don't know if we can talk about it here, maybe part of one of your slides, but some of them also think about renting the property out or leasing the property.
Okay.
But again, when that comes to the plate, we can help you with that, but usually in divorce, people, they just want to break. I mean, they want to get that thing cut right down the center, and they want to just move on. Now you have a property, now you have to still communicate with the ex, and discuss issues pertaining to that property. Are they not paying rent? Is there damage to the property? Is the lawn dying? Did they move pets in there when they weren't supposed to? Lots of things. So that comes up too. But again, we're there, just like you're there, to serve the client, and ultimately what they want they get, but they need to go in armed with all the knowledge.
Yeah, that makes sense. And refinancing, if one party's going to stay in the home, refinancing is probably their best option, because short of that, if both parties are on the loan, both parties are on title, and you give that property to your spouse and they're going to live in it and refinance it, if they don't, you're still on title, you're still on the loan, and if they default, I mean, you're going to go down with them.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you're still tied to the property. Oh, and one thing I wanted to
go ahead.
just add to that real quick is the agreements that you make with the court. Let's say you get a court order, you guys come to an agreement that spouse is going to keep the house and you're not going to refinance because it's not possible, and they default on the loan. You can't take your court agreement that's signed by the judge and say, look, Bank of America, I don't have any rights to this house
I'm free
anymore.
and clear. I'm free and clear
Yeah.
because the judge said it. So
Right.
now this isn't going to impact me when I want to go out there and buy
Right.
something else. Yeah,
It doesn't work that way. So despite the agreement you have with your spouse and the court, the judge has signed off on it.
The same thing with a quitclaim deed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're still on the loan.
Yeah, other people, and that's another thing too. Some people misadvise their clients or in real estate and say, well, you can pull the spouse off with a quitclaim deed.
Yeah.
But that doesn't fix it with the loan.
No.
So the cleanest break you could ever have would be to just get rid of it, sell it.
Or refinance it completely out.
Absolutely. If one of the parties is capable, the one that wants to stay in the house, absolutely.
I have to say, we've had a lot of clients just out of financial reasons, quick claim off the house and just take the risk of being on the loan. And just because they didn't want to short sell and ruin their credit, and the mortgage was still a lot less than, you know what I mean?
Sure.
That they could make that mortgage payment, the other spouse staying in there. And so the credit, and they could stay in there. But I tell them, your risk is that if they default, you need to come up with some way of making sure that payment is being made. Either they send you a copy of checks being cashed or some way of verifying, unless you just trust your ex to do the right thing.
And some people, I have to look at my own situation. Well, at this point, I would trust my wife of 23 years. Probably.
Most likely.
Yeah, most likely to do that. And again, there's a lot of relationships. I know you see it too. I mean, the spouses are so friendly, it's almost weird. It's like they're both about to get released from prison, and they're willing to do whatever it takes, and there's no argument at all. But I think that's the smaller part of the people that get divorced.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about keeping the existing mortgage and letting a spouse stay. We kind of touched on this a little bit. We actually touched on it a lot. If the spouse stays in the house, if it's not refinanced and you're staying on that same mortgage, there's that risk involved.
And the other thing too, let's say there's only one party that's on the loan, maybe the other spouse could consider writing up a lease agreement for them, actually doing it official. But it's a sticky situation.
I don't know, not sure I understand that.
Well, let's say one of the parties...
the one was on the loan.
Absolutely.
Lease agreement to
maybe
the other.
They could write up an official agreement stating this is what the monthly amount's going to be, this is when it's due, this is your part of the obligation with the upkeep of the house, you're not to sublet rooms, whatever it may be, to try to supplement income, because now, instead of one eviction, if that's the way it happens to go, and see, that's your enforcement mechanism, that contract.
Gotcha.
Instead of one, now all of a sudden, if they're renting rooms out to 5 or 6 different people, that's a $50,000 bill all day long to get all those folks out.
We've seen that happen once. We don't get those types of crazy cases in our office, but we've had people do that. It's funny when you're talking, you remind me of certain scenarios, and we had someone both on the home, both on the. You drop your mic. Yeah. Both on the home and both on the loan and title, and one of the spouses moved out, the other one stopped paying the mortgage, and so it was in default. Then he filed bankruptcy so he could delay it even further, and all the while renting out all the rooms and sectioning off part of the living room. He had like 6 people paying him $500-600 a month. So he's making $3,000 or $4,000,
Wow.
A month, and not paying the mortgage.
Nightmare.
Until the last we heard, 2 years he had been doing this. So it's just crazy. And all the while is we get the spouse who we're assisting, who got the judgment to sell the house, and now he's squatting and won't move out. So got those types of issues as well. So All right, let's see what else we got here. Oh, I want to talk about valuation. So they're going to sell. Now they have to come to an agreement on what's it's worth. We had clients in here a couple weeks ago. This was they had everything settled. The house was actually paid off in cash, so they were in good shape financially. The issue was, what is the house worth? So if they're going to divide it evenly, coming to a fair market value. And in this case, one party thought the house was worth $50,000 more than the other party, and they're looking at comparisons and all that. But what's the best way to come to an idea? Do they get independent appraisers? Do they get independent agents to do like a comparative market analysis? These particular clients, I said, look, you're talking about $50,000 in whole. It's really $25,000 to you if they're dividing, which they're like, okay, well, it's not that bad. But if they could meet in the middle, I mean, there's lots of options.
It's always said there's 3 values for a home. And it's like when you're buying a business, there's 3 sets of records. There's, what the owner's going to give you to sell it to show you that it's awesome. There's going to be what it really makes, so he knows exactly where he is every month, and then it's going to be the other one's what he shows the IRS, which is going to be a lot less than he really makes. With a home valuation, it's kind of the same thing, because you have the agent that's going to probably try to tell you what you want to hear in order to secure the listing.
Right.
Unfortunately, that seems to be more the case than the exception. The other value happens to come in where what you think it's worth, and then finally really what it's worth. So the way that we do it, and I think any good agent would, is we have to look at factual properties that have closed escrow, and we have to stack those properties up, making allowances plus or minus whatever percentage points or real amounts for the different amenities that their property might have versus the ones that we're able to compare it with. So the other thing you mentioned was an appraisal. Yeah, if it's a big deal, then you could hire an independent appraiser to go out and evaluate the property and establish that value. So that's probably the cleanest way, because with the agent, now you got to trust them.
Right.
And I'm not trying to put us down as an industry, but the worldview isn't so good. If that agent comes, sits both of you down and looks at the sold comparable properties, comparing apples to apples, not gaming the system, having you be able to verify that those are true and indeed the actual comparables within 6 months, within a half-a-mile radius, comparing the same types of property to your property, and being able to verify that with an a non-realtor based source online, somewhere else that wouldn't have any reason to game you, then that's also another good way.
Yeah, it's interesting because when people are splitting, say in this particular case they had the house paid off, but now they're splitting up and they need to cash out.
Right.
So he wanted to keep the home, so he just took out a second. He had the financial ability to qualify for that and cash her out. But the questions that became were, what's it worth? And do we use today's fair market value? What if the property declines in value a month later, or we see this decline in market, and the half is a lot less then? Do you take the fair market value? Let's say there's $100,000 in equity based on the appraised value, and do you just say, well, $50,000 is half, or do you take out that percentage of the sale? As far as, there's a lot of ways you can really convolute this, or you can just say, you know what, there's $100,000 in equity if we sold. Because you could count in commissions and escrow and title fees and whittle that down by 10 or 15 grand.
Sure.
So I think what people need to do is just move on. Don't fight over the pennies. Just focus on the meat, not the potatoes, if you will.
Right. And what we talked about kind of at the beginning, usually in a lot of cases, one of those spouses, they don't want to go. It's not their ideal scenario to be divorced.
Right.
So a lot of times that's where a lot of the wrenches are going to come in. And, they're hiring you to do a service. They hire me to do a service. My service is to try to balance everything so nobody gets hurt as a result of them wanting to sell this piece of real property. Ultimately, that's the goal. Commission aside, success aside, all this other stuff aside, that protection's important. And them having all the facts to be able to make good decisions.
Yeah. I skipped one of our 4. I noticed I missed a slide. Sell at a later date. So if I had 4 options. You added another about the rental. That was good. So sell, refinance, keep existing mortgage, sell at a later date, or rent it out. We have people doing that. But selling at a later date. We have folks that have either a primary residence or a vacation home
So sorry.
or a rental of some sort that they're making rents on. Okay, let's say it's a rental or any of those types of homes. And either the value's not there or they want to hopefully go up in value so they can sell. So I'll give you a specific circumstance. We had a client, vacation house, they make rents, it's like in Aspen or something like that, Big Bear, I don't know. And they rent it out and they make money on it, but if they sold, there's not enough value, they overpaid for it back when real estate was booming. So they want to wait several years before they sell it. That was the agreement. We'll continue to share the rents and manage the property together, but we don't want to sell it because it's going to be at a loss. It'll be a short sale, we don't want to ruin our credit. So that said, another option is to sell at a later date, and you have to make sure you have enough language in your divorce agreement that doesn't leave it so open-ended that you can't go to court and say, hey, it's time to sell.
Enforce it, right?
Enforce it. It has to be enough language to have some enforceability. It can't be totally open-ended. So you need to say something to the effect of, like in this case we said, within 5 years, the parties will meet and confer on a yearly basis to determine the appraised value for purposes of selling when it is enough to cover the fees and so forth of selling the property without a loss. So that way, if you get to that point and it's there, and the other party says, "Oh, now I actually want to keep it," you can go back to court and say, "No, this is what we agreed to," and get the court to intervene.
Yeah, I think that sell at a later date thing, even though, and I totally get that scenario, it's tough. I mean, how do we know? Again, just like back in 06 and 07, sure, properties were going up hand over fist like, money was free, and it practically was. But, the whole general consensus, even from some really, brainy financial advisors out there, was this trend was going to continue, but it didn't.
Yeah.
So it fell off. Selling at a later date, tough. I know any agent would always be there for their client, and if in fact that's what they decided to do in the future, they would. But again, you have to ask yourself, where are we going as a market? Where are we trending? What possible obstacles would there be in the future? It's a tough scenario.
Yeah. I mean, if someone was already negative equity and it was going to be a short sale now, and let's say it doesn't go up in value and they sell 5 years later, at least they've got some rents, I suppose. And it's going to be a short sale either way. I mean,
sure.
The plus is that maybe they get out of it break even. But
right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, because in today's market, I mean, you're asking people to basically, an agent to say, like the stock market. Yeah, I think the house is going to keep going up or down. I mean, you're really taking a chance there.
Yeah, that's the trade line, right? So somebody calls a real estate agent on the phone and says, "Is it a good time to buy?" Yes, yes, buy right now.
Yeah.
That's the typical way it's done. Unfortunately, right now in Santa Cruz Valley, here's some truth. We've seen prices being flat for the last couple months, and it doesn't look like the prices are going to continue to go up.
Really?
It would give an appearance right now, because now we're getting more and more inventory. We're seeing a lot of price changes. So this is something to ask that agent. Where are we in the market? Is it a buyer's market? We're still in a seller's market, but that trend is now shifting because of the excess inventory. We see more days on market time frames. We see a lot more properties having their prices changed, and those changes aren't positive, they're negative, they're actually reducing. We don't see the actual sales prices changing, but again, that will eventually happen if we keep on the trend. There's no new buyers that come out into the market wanting to purchase at the current levels. There's no other place for it to go.
That whole evolution is so interesting, the transition from equity growing and home prices going up to how buyers and sellers realizing, well, my house is on the market too long, and then buyers saying, well, I noticed that there's been price reductions, so everyone just kind of sits on the fence.
Absolutely.
And there's like this delay.
Correct. And that's what we're seeing right now. A lot of buyers, they're waiting. And we have a plethora we're working with, but they're just waiting.
Yeah.
And I get that. And we have sellers. The biggest question today from a seller is, where am I going to move? Okay, so I want to upgrade from this house. Is there going to be a house for me? It's not to that point where I could say 100%, yeah, oh yeah, sure.
Right.
And then the other question, well, what do I do if I sell this? We should make this sale contingent on me finding the home of choice. So then that becomes a tough scenario for a buyer when there's 50 other houses.
And you kind of tie up 3 different people, right?
So then the other buyer said, well, I don't want to write an offer on this house. It's contingent on them finding another house. And we don't know
And
how
that
long
might be
it's gonna
contingent
take.
on them finding one.
Oh,
it could get ugly.
deep, real deep. And then it's like a house of cards, you know.
Yeah.
You go through the whole thing, and it could be 8 to 10 to 20. I mean, infinite numbers deep. One person in there that's contingent, the whole thing done.
Collapse.
Oh, it's very interesting. I have to say the divorce scenario is, you're going to hire somebody to do it. Make sure they've done it. Make sure they understand the process. Make sure you get good advice. Make sure they sit you down and get a game plan with you. Don't take it for granted that they say, oh, I'm an expert at doing divorces for real estate and selling out. Don't take their word for it. You got to sit down. They should be able to explain to you how the process works. Just like you, Tim, what's good about you is we've talked a lot before. You're good at scenarios. Well, we had this couple in here last week, and she said such and such, and he said so and so. And it relates to what these people are now going through. That's the best way to convey information.
It's like troubleshooting. You see, we do so many divorce cases here, all throughout California. We see all these different scenarios. And now, from doing it so long, we can troubleshoot and give suggestions, ideas, which is the whole reason we were doing this episode regarding real estate, because this is one of those things we're trying to inform our clients about. These are one of the options. And I said, when we have our consultations, when they have real estate, I say, look, when it comes to your house, these are the 3 options you have, or 4 or 5 now that we have. And depending on their circumstances, financial, I can tell them right there on the spot, this is going to be your only option because of X, Y, and Z. And that has to sink in sometimes, because it's usually not what they want, because everyone wants to keep the house and all that. But what we tell folks is, regarding money and your finances, when you live apart, when you separate from your spouse, you have the same income, whether it was you working alone or both spouses working. The money doesn't go as far when you're trying to handle 2 households.
Right, absolutely.
Whether it be
There's
the
additional
original
expense.
primary residence, or you both have separate, move out and go that route. So, well,
True.
Anything to add?
No,
That was a good chat.
Sorry for all the hacking.
No, it's fine.
I've been trying to get over a cold, and then I'm still contagious, so there you go. There's
Oh, good.
that. No. And the other thing, I'm sorry I dropped my mic. When I was bending over, your lap was right there, and I didn't want it to
noticed.
appear that some crazy stuff was going to happen, so I had to
That'll
reposition.
look interesting.
Yeah, put that up there.
I'll
And
just keep
this
it
is-
like what is where they have like the 3-second loop thing? What is one of those?
I don't know what it's called, but I get you.
Like Instagram, that 7 seconds.
Right,
Just
wham,
keep doing
wham.
that over and over again.
Yeah, keep that one coming up. That's
Drop
perfect.
the mic.
Yeah, I dropped
wardrobe
it.
malfunction.
Right, in the office.
So Connor McIver, Santa Clarita real estate expert. I'd be surprised if anyone watching this hasn't already watched one of your thousands of videos. Podcasts.
most of my crappy videos, I have 2 views.
Yeah.
One's me and one's mom. So that's pretty good.
My kids joke with me because they say, Dad, you only got like 5 views on that video. I said, yeah, but I have 500 videos times 5, and some get more than 5, some get several hundred or thousands, but yeah, they're not like viral videos. These are information based. They're out there for people who are searching for this information to find it.
Yeah, we don't have the cute kitten that's purring as we're tickling, or the baby in the bathtub.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a funny video. But
So I kind of have copied everything you've done, just so you know. You have podcasts, you have videos you do daily, you do slide shares, you do blog posts, you have so much content out there. No matter what mode you like to digest it, it's there, it's available.
you know what this is good for, and you embraced it, and I'm so impressed. People want to see you.
Yeah.
They don't want to see an actor. They don't want to see somebody that's, trying to pose themselves through another person as trying to be the best of the best of the best. They want to see transparency.
Yeah.
This is an off-the-cuff interview, basically, between you and I, and this is what people want to see.
Exactly.
We're not going to win awards. We're not going to go viral. I've had some videos that have gotten a lot of views that I don't know why. I can't pull it apart and figure out why that one. But maybe the keywords were right, maybe the story was right, maybe the day was right, who knows. But this is how people learn. And I know when I'm watching videos on YouTube, especially if it's this interview format, I'll just let it play and go on to do
in the
something
background.
else.
Yeah.
Because it's educational.
And that's the whole point. Education. We get all videos, podcasts. We have these live broadcasts on Thursdays where
Got
people
your radio
can
show,
actually when I have it open, people can actually go on and chat roll now. As soon as this is only a fifth one, so as soon as we start marketing this, I think this is going to catch on.
No
3 or 4
doubt.
months, people are going to start coming in droves, I hope, asking questions, and we won't even have to have a topic. It'll just be, okay, what's the questions? Call,
Absolutely.
and do it that way. So that's really what I'm hoping for, that route. So how can people get a hold of you? I mean, they should call you if they are thinking of divorce and need some information.
Yeah, we have everything prominently displayed. Our website,
I did that.
paris911.com is
Are you
good.
impressed?
Haiku deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. I love that haiku deck. But yeah, they just go there, and any contact on that site, you're going to get me. So you're going to talk to yours truly. Usually my voice isn't as sexy.
Very
later.
raspy.
Yeah, now, but it's
Very
kind
raspy.
of, it's like a bedroom voice. Something I do pretty well. But anyway, yeah, so that's the best way. Reach out and we'll answer your questions. One of the things that's important, interview multiple agents. The thing is, too, whenever you're looking to get information, you don't sign anything right away. If they're bringing you in their office to talk to you and they hand you a piece of paper and they say, all right, well, I need you to, come on, really? You just want information. So understand that going in. Not all agents are created equal, no, but not everybody's the same. So interview those you find them to be the most comfortable, because you're about to go on a journey that could get really ugly. It's already probably ugly because now here you are, getting divorced. Find somebody that's sympathetic to that.
Yeah. And you have an app. Not a lot of realtors. I love that app. I have it on my phone. What are they in iTunes? What do they search for to find your app?
Yeah, as far as searching for houses,
Yeah.
There are a couple. You can look for California Homes. That's our app in the App Store. It's also in the Android Marketplace. You can also text the letters SCV to 87778. So if you're at your cell phone right now or iPad, just text the letters SCV for Santa Clarita Valley to 87778. So that's pretty easy. So yeah, on our website, paris911.com, you get there, you'll see the Mac box at the top part. It's like a search thing. You can also punch the word app in there and you'll get all the downloadable stuff.
Very cool.
But, yeah, I love it. You've done a fantastic job with Divorce 661.
Can you tell I copied you? Copied you on the name.
Don't say that.
Copied
Well, if
you.
you did, I'm thankful.
Yeah, I did. Like I said, the blog seemed to work. Let's do that. Do videos, doing the interviews now. And
You're just.
working on it.
I like the informational approach, and I think people like that. People don't like to be sold. You're not asking for anything. You're not saying, send me $50 and I'll do this, or you're showing people how to save money. What was that thing you had that came out this morning? Saving $492.
Oh yeah, save on the filing fees. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, really? Who's doing that?
Yeah.
Who's even mentioning that?
Right.
It's
funny, in that sequence, that was the most opened email. So people have money on their mind
Absolutely.
when going through this. But going back to what you said about just being real people and not actors and giving out information, people that watch these, they see who we are, and they're going to make a decision. Do I like that person or not? So it helps people make that decision. So they're not going to call if they watch there's something weird. I don't like that guy. Or
Yeah, he's got
they're
no
not
hair.
going to call. Well, good. Then that saves me time. People that call us, they usually say, Tim, I saw you. I watched several of your videos, and they already know you.
Yeah, it's
when
kinda
they come in for services, we go out there and they're already getting up off the couch. I don't know who they are, but they already know me just
Right.
from the videos and my voice and all that. And now in town, people are starting to, oh, I saw you on Facebook. Or,
buying you drinks and all sorts of stuff.
Not yet, yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming out here, Connor. This was great.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Always
I really
a
like this this whole interview setup we got here.
Yeah,
Very cool.
it's really, really
Very
nice.
cool.
You did a great job.
Very cool. All right, let me see if I can figure out how to shut this down. I tell you, this is a three-man operation, and I'm doing it all by myself. All right, well, thanks for tuning in. Tim Blankenship, divorce661.com. Every Thursday, live broadcast at 1 p.m. We have a chat roll. If you go to Livecast tab on the divorce661.com website, it'll take you right to the most recent broadcast coming up. And the chat roll is just below the video, and we'll know if you're online and watching. Otherwise, you can ask a question. We are monitoring it, so hopefully this will catch on. Thanks for tuning in. Connor, paris911.com. Thanks so much for coming. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.
And we'll hopefully have you back on again soon.